What's up guys, SLOTH here, and today we're doing the patch notes review for patch 4.2, King of the Kappa. We got a new god, Kuzenbo. We will quickly look at his card out here. This is his card. These Kappas, these mini Kappas will also play a role there. Okay, we just went black, whatever. Doesn't really matter. What we have here first is his kit. We're going to go through that and then the rest of the patch notes, the balance changes and so on. And we're starting with a passive, Water Bowl. Each time Kuzenbo takes 2% of his maximum health as damage, he gets 1.5% damage reduction. And this stacks up to 10 times. It lasts 10 seconds, so after 10 seconds the stacks run out. And when he's knocked up, knocked back, grabbed, pulled, banished, or otherwise disrupted, then he loses half of the stack. So it says half the stacks here, but then it says 5% just a line below. Not really clear which one it's going to be. Either way, it allows him to be very frontliney without having to build as much defense as other Guardians necessarily. Because, yeah, reduction is just a very strong stat in general. His first ability is called Kappa. Those are the small Kappas that you see up there. What he does is basically he gets a Ho-Yi-like ricochet that can bounce up to 3 times. It's a little bit wider though, or it bounces up to 2 times, but 3 lines after each other. And that ability will then spawn a Kappa when it ends, and that Kappa is like a mini minion that walks up to the nearest target and attacks them and stays for a bit and then dies. The additional bounces also deal extra, like not the extra damage, but they will deal damage again, so you can hit one target multiple times, which is making it a little bit stronger. And may even allow him to jungle clear. Going up to 210 base damage with 55% scaling, so not too bad. And 16 seconds cooldown, which is quite long, but we get to how to do something about that. And then the damage of the Kappa scales up as you leveled it. Very interesting ability, not very typical for a Guardian. But hey, the rest of his kit is also a little bit unusual. The next ability is called Shell Spikes. Shell Spikes is basically a damage reflect. 20% damage reflect up to 40% if you level it up completely. And what it also does is it reduces the cooldown of your first ability, Kappa, for every instance of damage. This includes every single tick of damage as well. And the reduction starts with 0.2 and scales up to 0.6. So it's still going to take quite a few different hits before your cooldown is completely low. And a 1v1 trade is probably not doing all too much. But, you know, it kind of does something for him. Cooldown goes down to 12 seconds, so relatively short. You have to keep in mind here that the duration is only 3 seconds though. So it's not like you're going to constantly run around with those. They can obviously be combined with other items like Nemean Line and you'll be like reflecting a lot. But overall, not quite sure. Not a typical Guardian ability either because it's so damage focused. So 2 abilities are very damage focused. Now we're getting to the point where he gets CC. Sumo Slam. Sumo Slam is a dash. You can imagine somewhat similar to Vamana's dash. He is immune to slows and roots, so similar to Kabrakan in his 1. And he deals damage to minions that he walks through or runs through. And he pushes enemy guards and basically picks up the first guard and pushes him forward. He's dashing relatively fast. I think it's actually slightly faster than a tier dash would be. And he will also deal damage to other guards that he pushes through. If he hits a wall with that guard, it will also deal extra damage. And the damage per hit is here going up to 185 plus 35% scaling, 16 seconds cooldown reduction. Cooldown, sorry. So, very interesting ability. Kind of the same style of disruption as Tyr has. So, you will be looking to get Blink on this. Also, because of the next ability. And very hard to actually make work in favor of your team without Blink. Because the enemy needs to position themselves relatively badly. And otherwise, you're just going to push people out of your team. Unless you're close to a wall, then you can make it work that way. So, he interacts a lot with walls. And with the 1 and with the 3. So, very, very interesting ability overall. Also, it does silence the enemy, which I don't think is in the description here. So you can't just jump out from what I've seen. I think you can beats out an 8-pointer because you're not knocked up as you would be in a tier ult, tier push. And his ultimate is Watery Grave. He basically turns into a shell, or just hides in his shell, starts spinning, and knocks back enemies that he hits. He's CC immune, has higher movement speed. And the enemies get knocked back and get multiple instances of damage though. The first one goes up to 220 damage plus 40% scaling. And if they get hit again, it's only 110 damage and 20% scaling. And you get 35% movement speed. Very interesting ultimate once again. Because it's basically the opposite of a Hades ult. It doesn't pull people in, it pushes them away. Once again, this is kind of hard to make it work in a way that it sets up for your team, because you can easily push enemies away from your allies, but you can't just push them into your allies as easily. You really need to be smart about your positioning to make this work. So overall, very interesting kit. Not a typical Guardian, because he doesn't have the peel where he just sets you up in the way that he drags the enemy or locks him in place and lets your team hammer down on them, but instead he pushes them away or towards the team, depending on how you play him. And he has good protective measures. Like if you're getting pressured, he can definitely do a lot about that. And he can play very well with Blink. I feel like he will probably need to upgrade his Blink most of the time just to make a lot of use of it. Maybe even get like a Relic Dagger. So very, very interesting kit. I think he could be played in jungle and solo. His Kappa can be stopped by a target, by a guard in solo, so that can stop his clear, but he can then push the enemy. Whereas in the jungle, he has to hit the bounces, probably the ricochets, in order to make that work for him. So both a little complex. Hyris said they think he's good in duo. I think if you have him on your team, you need another very support-focused solo laner or jungler to make up for the lack of immediate lockdown CC like taunts or stuns. Or knockups, for that matter. Because these are kind of like knockbacks, rather. Here is his recolor. Also pretty nice. And then we have some new guard skins. I'm just going to go over them really quick. We have Dreadlord Fenrir, which is actually a tier 3. This is like a bone-themed version. Kind of cool. And it has the bone dragon farm as well. Then we have the new Nox skin, Cleavage Nox Kappa. It's called Heartbreaker Nox. Just going to show you the voice packs real quick. They might be a little loud, just as a warning ahead.
Most undead make terrible warriors. They've got no guts.
It is very loud.
Quit blabbering.
Okay, then we have Swarm Sentry Amusen Cap, which is more of a robot-themed, maybe a little StarCraft inspired as well. Very cool animations on that skin. On the Nox skin as well, by the way. Voice pack is right here.
Crush them!
And then we have Mini Metal Jing Wei. No one in chat liked this. I kind of like the skin, but what's kind of annoying about her is that the voice lines, the voice lines that play when using abilities.
Aww, I'm gonna melt your face off!
Because you can mute that stuff, you could change that to the default voice pack. Then we got Morgan Mastery skins, aka the nipple card. Look really cool in game, but I don't think that was necessary. And Shivalanki Mastery skins also look pretty cool in game. I don't like the diamond that much, but yeah. Kuzenbo Clapper Mode, Kuzenbo Wave, Jingwei Dance, updated description for lobby. Team boost doesn't only work in modes where you actually get worshippers, and Demonic Pact Anubis has been scaled down a little bit, so he doesn't actually cover the whole screen, which is helpful. Clash gets some changes, just going over them really quick. So Apophis gets some base health increased and scaling health increase. The enhanced buffs all get changed in one way or another. The mana buff gets reduced, like buff benefits. The damage buff gets an increased spawn timer. And the Apophis buff is nerfed a little bit, and so is the enhanced buff for him. And the Phoenix damage is increased a little bit. I guess a lot of necessary changes. I gotta admit, I haven't played Clash on the new map, so I don't really know how much it does. Conquest gets a visual effect for portals that are open in the base. Okay. Item changes. The whole Shuriken tree gets hit. 8-point Shuriken more expensive. Wind Demon more expensive by 200 gold. Poison Star more expensive by 200 gold. And Poison Star loses 10 physical power. Will this change anything? I don't think so. It's still very cheap, very accessible. And they still have these strong effects in combination with attack speed on crit items and still some power. It's going to be more expensive. Maybe some people will skip Wind Demon now for a, harder hitting crit item. But I don't think anyone's going to skip Poison Star. 200 gold is affordable. It's still so strong. God changes. Aphrodite gets an update, which is basically just a description update that Aphro shares 70% of the mana regeneration with allies and not 30%. Chiron gets some buffs. Very interesting buffs. I like this approach. This is very, very, unique. So what he gets is a physical power buff in his dash. During Giddy Up, you get up to 50 power. This is something you usually level last because it's an escape. Maybe somebody will find a strat to level it early now. Who knows? But I doubt it. You need that escape, and it's not the best escape already. So very, very interesting how you can make this work. But for high aggression plays, dashing into the enemy, you have some extra damage now on your shots, which is nice. And basically the knockback would also deal more damage with that. Centauros also gets increased damage, and that's quite a fair bit. It gets 30 per shot, so up to 90 extra damage across all ranks. So on rank 1, you're dealing 390 if you hit all shots now instead of 300. Quite big. Early kill potential with Chiron will be a lot higher. So a lot of aggression going for Chiron now. Will definitely put him in a better place. Not sure how good of a place yet. I feel like the ultimate sounds really, really strong. The giddy up thing is more of a situational, interesting stuff. Chronos gets a lot of buffs because he lost his Fatalis, and that didn't really, people didn't like it. It didn't work too well for him. Magical power increase from Wheel of Time increased to 25% from 20. Basic attack power from 35 to 45, so it's going to hit harder. And also, Accelerate has completely changed values. It's not like 20 plus 4%, so 24% at the start. It starts at 25 plus 12, so you're starting at 37%. And goes up to 45% extra movement speed. That means this is basically the same speed as Sprint, very early into the game. I think that's scary, because most people do build Haste and Fatalis in Chronos now, which means he has a much better time sticking to people already, and now he's going to get a free Sprint on top of that. And yeah, you can use Close and slow him down, but let's see how much he cares, And Stop Time also gets a little damage increase. I think the Wheel of Time change and the Stop Time change, totally okay with that. He needed some buffs. A little bit. Accelerate, extra movement speed to that extent, when you can build Haste Fatalis on him and it's actually decent. It's a rough one. Let's see how it pans out. Nike gets nerfs. Her 2 victory scaling for the movement speed is decreased by 1%. The power bonus is decreased by 2%. And rend cooldown is increased by 2 seconds. This will be quite impactful. The passive, yes, that was too strong. She needed nerfs there still. And it's still going to be very potent. But keep in mind that rend is basically Nika's only reliable damage tool. Her ultimate is her ultimate. You can't spam that. You cannot always, you have to use it at the crucial time of the fight. The 3 is relatively unreliable to confirm. So what you're stuck with is the rend for regular damage. And that's already easy to interrupt if you have any kind of guard that can interrupt it. But now it has longer cooldown as well. So when the only damaging tool is not up as often as you want it to be, you're going to struggle a little bit. I think Nika will not necessarily inherently be in a terrible place, but I don't really like rend being touched in that way. I think there would have been other options to balance out better, but hey. Scottie gets a movement speed buff for 3 seconds after leaving permafrost now. So in a period of time where movement speed is increased. I think it's a bit weird. I can see why she needed more mobility, because she doesn't really have an escape. But it kind of, takes away from the fact that she was never supposed to be much of an escaper, but more a boxer. But she lost damage with the beginning of the season, which has never been returned to a kid. And now we're stuffing her with movement speed instead of actually giving her back the damage that she lost. And that's something I don't understand, because I think Scottie needs damage. Calder doesn't need more damage. I absolutely think that Calder could even be scaled further down than he is now. But give Scottie some damage, because she's getting none at the moment. And I don't think that's right for a god that's not overperforming by any means. Sylvanas gets his base damage decreased from, base magical power decreased from 38 to 35 to hinder is clear. Yeah, that's gonna do a lot. Not really. It has teeny tiny impact, but this is the happy change for me. This is the change that really makes me happy. Tyr's Power Cleave is getting a nerf, and it's exactly what I was complaining about in the Tyr rant. Power Cleave defensive stance no longer heals twice for the first target hit. This ability now caps at 3 heals. So you actually have to go into a wave and heal up now instead of healing in a 1v1 scenario. No more bullshit heals. Happy Duke. Thank you very much to whoever at Hyris did this. Great decision. I love you. Last one, Sheng Jian. Sheng Jian mostly fixing descriptions or issues. Furious Roar was dealing 4% damage instead of 3%, so that's getting nerfed down. Sky Cunning X was dealing 80 damage instead of 85, so that's getting buffed up. Yeah, teeny tiny changes. And rank 3 of Whirlwind of Rage and Steel would grab targets longer than intended, so that's fixed as well. Overall, I like this the changes here. I like the tier was changed. I like that the crit Shuriken tree was touched, even though I think it's not the right way to go about it, especially with Poison Star still basically having 2 passives and being relatively cheap. I would have liked, I really would have wanted to see Apollo and Freya getting some sort of nerf this patch, simply because of the way they are performing at the moment. They stand in the meta. And that's my ideas in general. But overall, I'm happy with the changes. Some cool skins, some cool stuff. And a really interesting new guard that I really want to see like where he works best. With that, if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for watching. Hope to see you for the next one. Duke Sloth, out.